Hey there, Darren Garman, and welcome to the Heartland Multifamily Show, the place for all things multifamily. And on today's episode, number one, I'm going solo. Number two, we're going to talk about two important things as a multifamily owner and investor, whether you're active or passive. You got to be thinking about this in order to maximize not only your investment, which all of us obviously want to do, but to maximize your time, effort, and energy, getting the best payoff that you can. It has to do with multifamily strategy versus multifamily tactics. Multifamily strategy versus multifamily tactics, and making sure you are dialed in to both of those and making sure you're also dialed into each one of them individually. What am I talking about? Find out on this next episode of the Heartland Multifamily Show. Welcome to the Heartland Multifamily Show, the shorter, more profitable path to multifamily ownership and investing. All right, we are back with the Heartland Multifamily Show where we're talking about strategy versus tactics. And this is pretty important, but before we get into the information, make sure if what I talk about in this episode resonates with you, you click that subscribe button below. And also, I'd love to hear your comments, so make sure you leave me some feedback. I'd like to have some dialogue with you regarding this episode where we're talking about multifamily tactics versus strategy. So what am I talking about? Strategy versus tactics, tactics versus strategy. So the first thing you need to understand is this is big in terms of looking into that future multifamily investment, whether it's your first investment, whether it is your additional investment, whether you're looking at buying that next property, whether you're looking at investing in that next property, or maybe you're making a decision not to, whatever it is, you've got to be implementing both strategy and tactics when you make those decisions, especially when it comes to multifamily. Now, what am I talking about? What I'm talking about here is anytime you make that investment in that multifamily property, a lot of times people think that they're kind of done. So there's, I've done all the work. I finally found the property. I've maybe been involved in the due diligence. I've maybe been involved in maybe even some of the negotiations. And all of a sudden we close and now, we're done. No. Now the work just begins. And what then begins is, okay, what is our outline in terms of strategy? What's our strategy with this property? What are we going to be doing as owners? So are we going to be operating it and owning it for maybe 3 to 5 years? Okay. Do we have more of a longer term outlook? Is this something we're going to be maybe involved in for 7 years, 10 years? Or maybe this is a legacy kind of property. Maybe this is something that we're going to look at owning, investing in for maybe longer than 10 years. Okay. So when you're talking about looking into the future and what's required of not only you, but maybe your managers that are managing the property, maybe your property management team, heck, maybe even your property maintenance technicians, maybe your asset manager, maybe your lender. What is going to be required of them to go from where you are now to where you want to be or where you see this property going down the road? Well, when you incorporate those things and you make those decisions, you are now implementing strategy. Okay, so what's our strategy here? What are we going to be doing to get from point A to point B 3, 5, 10 years down the road? What's our strategy? Okay. Then, now once you've got your strategy figured out, now it's time to start implementing tactics. Okay, so we're going to go from point A to point B, but here are the steps we're going to take to get there. Here's what is required for us to go from here to there. Here's what is necessary for that to happen. Okay, now we're talking about tactics and the implementation of tactics. Because what you find is the implementation of 2, 3, 5, half a dozen tactics starts to then make that strategy a reality. You see, strategy isn't a reality. It doesn't go from thinking, having conversations, discussing different strategic things, unless you start implementing the tactics. Okay? And you can't really implement any tactics until you have some strategy figured out. Now, here's the cool thing about this. You can make changes to these as you go. So you may find out 2 years down the road, we may want to take a detour on our strategy and go this way. Fine. Okay. What are our new tactics as we do this? Okay. We may want to expand our ownership down the road 5 years, 10 years, based on what we know now that maybe we didn't know 3 years ago. Fine. What are our tactics we're going to be implementing now in order to do that? Okay. You see, you can't really go down the strategy road without having the tactics road right behind it. Nor can you really be doing tactical things if you don't really have any strategy, right? Makes sense, doesn't it? But here's what I find. I find a lot of multifamily owners, a lot of multifamily investors, either again active or passive, they're not implementing both strategy and tactics. They're maybe kind of in a fog in the tactic world, and maybe we'll do things, well, maybe we'll raise rents. Oh, okay. Maybe we'll reduce our expenses. Okay. Maybe we'll add some other sources of income. Oh, okay. Well, what's the strategy behind that? Why are we doing, where are we going? Well, I don't know. We just kind of thought we might do. Well, that's really not the best direction to go. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I'm going to be having a free webinar coming up, the link's below, on how to correctly and with low risk invest your IRA or 401k in really good multifamily properties. A majority of our investors do this. I do this personally. It's not illegal. Make sure you click the link below. We'd love to have you. And then on the other hand, you don't want to have these long-term strategic ideas. Maybe we're going to make this property into, maybe we're going to take this 300-unit community and maybe we're going to split it off into 300 different condominiums. And then maybe we're going to sell these condominiums maybe sometime down the road. That'd be a good strategy. Well, if you haven't done that 6, 7 years down the road, what have you done other than have a conversation about strategy? Right? And so I could name dozens of more examples. The list could be long, but here's the bottom line for you. If you are an owner-operator yourself, you run the properties, you manage the properties, maybe even oversee the management process, make sure you've got your list of strategy and tactics working together so you can fulfill the strategy with the tactics, i.e. the implementations that you are making. All right, you've got to have one and the other joined together to get the most out of your time and effort and energy as an active owner or active landlord. Now, let's say you're passive. You might be saying, well, Darren, I'm passive. I don't really get involved in the tactics that much. Or, I mean, I might be kind of involved in the strategy or know the strategy, but I'm not really that involved. So what? You got to make sure that the folks that you are working with, the folks that are answering to you, they better be doing this. You better be asking the question, so what's our strategy here? What are we looking at for our strategy with this property down the road? And then what kind of tactics are we going to be using as we move forward? You've got to know. So you know the direction that you're going to be going and that the property is going to be moving so that you're not surprised, so that maybe your idea of what the strategy should be is either the same or different than those that are answering to you or that are communicating with you as a passive investor. You got to be on the same page with this. You don't want to find out 3 years down the road, well, you know, maybe their strategy is different than what I thought I really wanted it to be, and their tactics are really going down a road that I don't really agree with. Kind of too late to find that out, don't you think? All right, so let's kind of come full circle here with this episode. Again, we're talking about multifamily strategy and multifamily tactics. All right, very important that you implement both in your multifamily decision making. Again, whether active or passive, you've got a strategic route you're going to be taking and making decisions on. Great. Then you've got a tactical route that you're going to be making decisions on and taking. Great. But here's the bottom line. You need both of them separately, and then you need to be working both of them together the minute you take over that property. And every day and every month you own it, it's a constant work in progress on strategy and tactics to make the potential, that property potential, being realized not only as soon as possible, but as consistently as it possibly can be, day after day, month after month, year after year. All right. So, hey, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Heartland Multifamily Show, the strategy and tactics episode. Again, if you like what you have listened to or watched on this episode, make sure you click that subscribe button. And again, love to hear your comments. All right, take care. We'll see you. Bye-bye.